Okay, let's continue. وَلَا تُصَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ. And do not turn your cheek in contempt toward people. What a beautiful advice. That when you're talking to people, face them. When you are sitting with people, face them. Don't turn your cheek towards them in contempt. لا تصعر خدك. تصعر is from the root letters صاد عين را. صاد عين را. And sar is basically the crookedness in the neck. What does that mean? That the neck is constantly bent in one direction. So like for example, a person is just facing left, or a person is just facing right. It's just fixed over there. It doesn't move from there. And basically this is a disease that camels develop, in which the neck becomes crooked and it bends down, and so that a camel cannot stand straight, it cannot walk straight. It's a particular disease that they develop in the neck. Okay? And because of that, they cannot bend their neck, it's just fixed in one position, and they cannot walk straight, they cannot look straight. And figuratively, تُصَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ, khad is the cheek of a person. تُصَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ, this is figuratively when in arrogance and pride, a person turns his face away from people. Out of arrogance and pride, a person would turn his face away from people. So, whenever a person would say that, the Arabs would say, قَدْ صَعَّرَ خَدَّهُ, that he has turned his cheek away in contempt. Can you picture this? It's very important to picture this. That one is that you're talking to someone and you're facing them. And the other is that you're so full of yourself that you're just looking away from them, and as they're talking to you, you don't even bother to look at them. What do we learn? That we should face one another, not turn our backs to one another. Isn't it so? We shouldn't turn our backs to one another, but rather we should face one another. Because when you face one another, in Jannah what do we see? Mutaqabilin, facing one another. What does that lead to? Love, happiness. And when a person does not even look at the other, when he does not even face the other, then what does it show? Extreme pride and arrogance. A poet once said, وَكُنَّا إِذَا الْجَبَّارُ سَعَّرَ خَدَّهُ أَقَمْنَا لَهُ مِنْ مَيْلِهِ فَتَقَوَّامًا. That when a tyrant, he turns his cheek away from us, we remove his crookedness, and so he becomes straight. That if anyone dares to turn their face away from us, we don't accept it, we don't take it. What do? We fix their crookedness, and then they become straight. So, وَلَا تُصَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ. Do not turn your cheek to the people out of contempt, out of arrogance, out of vanity, but rather face them. Be gentle towards them. And greet them with a cheerful face. Greet them with a happy face. And notice, لِلنَّاسِ. And nas includes who? All people. Typically what happens with children? Guests come over, relatives come over, they don't like those guests, they don't like those relatives, and that's it, they don't even face them. They don't even look at them. They don't even go and greet them. But what do we see? That all people, no matter who they are, adults, or they're younger than you, whether they're relatives, or they're just friends, or strangers, when you come across them, when you talk to them, when you meet them, don't be arrogant in your behavior towards them. وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. And do not walk in the earth exultantly. Marahan is from the root letters mim raha. And marah is extreme happiness. Extreme happiness. That when a person is so happy that he becomes arrogant, and وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا, don't walk with this extreme happiness, that don't walk arrogantly. Don't walk struttingly. Don't walk with haughtiness. Rather walk how? How? With humility. And don't walk like this. Don't face people like this, because إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. Allah, He does not like every person who is self-deluded and boastful. He doesn't like such people. No matter who he is. كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. Mukhtal is from the root letters khayalam. And ikhtiyal is arrogance that is based on some greatness or superiority that a person thinks he has, but he doesn't actually have. You understand? Such arrogance, such pride, that is because of what? Some greatness or superiority that a person thinks he has. He thinks he's better. He thinks he's superior. He thinks he's greater. But he's not actually like that. So in an imaginary world, a person thinks very highly of himself. In his head, in his opinion, he views himself as someone very great. And this is from khayl. And who is fakhur? Someone who cannot stay silent. Kal fakhar. What is it? Such clay that is dry. When you knock it, when you touch it, it produces a sound. A knocking sound. So who is fakhur then? Someone who cannot stay silent. Who wants that his presence should be felt. Who is always trying to seek other people's attention. How? By boasting. By showing off. By praising themselves. By talking about themselves. By not letting other people talk. You understand who fakhur is? That you just touch him slightly and bang, huge noise. He comes in and that's it, center of attention. Fakhur. A person who makes his presence known and felt by those who are around him. He tries to gain their attention. How? By talking, by being noisy, by showing off, by praising himself, by showing himself as superior. And fakhr is such pride that is over external things, external blessings. So it's not that a person is proud because he has a certain ability, but he's very proud because he is very wealthy, he is extremely beautiful, or, he's very proud over apparent things that are very visible, with which he shows off. You understand? So this is what fakhr is. So Allah, He does not like every person who is mukhtal and fakhur. A person who, when he walks arrogantly. And you know how sometimes you see young people, they're walking, and it's as though, which king is coming? You wonder, king of which world is coming? The way that they walk, it's as though other people around them don't exist, and they're the only ones in this world. And as if they're imitating someone which they are in their heads trying to imitate. And to think, yes, I look like that basketball player. And I look like that wrestler right now. And yes, that look I gave and that step I took, yeah, exact imitation. That's what they think of themselves. Mukhtal. They think of themselves as someone very great, but they're far from that. Mukhtal and fakhur. Someone who's always showing off, talking about themselves. I can do this and I can do that and I have this and I have that. Mukhtal and fakhur. So we see that with these characteristics that are mentioned over here, that لا تسعر خدك للناس لا تمشي في الأرض مرحا إن الله لا يحب كل مختال فخور. An extremely ill-mannered, ill-behaved person is being described. That when this person talks, he turns his cheek in contempt. He does not even face other people. And when he walks with pride. And in his head, he thinks very great of himself. Because of which he criticizes other people, he belittles other people, and he praises himself all the time. Such a person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like him. What do we learn? That Iblis, when he tried to be arrogant, that خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ, that you created me from fire and you created him from clay. He was showing off, fakhur, and in his head mukhtal. What do we see? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him, Surah Al-A'raf, ayah 13, that قَالَ فَهْبِطْ مِنْهَا فَمَا يَكُونُ لَكَ أَن تَتَكَبَّرَ فِيهَا فَخْرَجْ إِنَّكَ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. That descend from paradise, it is not allowed for you to be arrogant over here. So get out. Indeed, you are of those who are debased and humiliated. فَخْرُجْ. Leave. إِنَّكَ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. You are of those who are made small. Because those people who are arrogant, what do they lack? What quality do they lack? Of humility. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like? Humility. And when a person is humble, it reflects in his speech. It reflects in the way that he deals with other people, in the way that he looks at other people, in the way that he walks. What do we see? That وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. Those who walk gently upon the earth, with humility, not with pride and arrogance. In Surah Al-Isra, ayah 37, we learn, وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا إِنَّكَ لَن تَخْرِقَ الْأَرْضَ وَلَن تَبْلُغَ الْجِبَالَ طُولًا. That do not walk upon the earth exultantly with pride, because if you try to walk like that, you will never tear the earth apart. No matter how heavily you put your foot on the ground, how heavily, and no matter how terribly you stamp your feet, you will never be able to tear the earth apart. And as you walk, swaggering, as you walk arrogantly, swaying from side to side, remember that you will never reach the mountains in height. No matter how great you think of yourself, you will never reach the mountains in height. So what do we see? Humility is something that Allah likes, and arrogance is something that He dislikes. And Luqman, he's making his son realize that. Because it's very, very easy for children to start showing off. Isn't it? Sometimes at such a young age, little girls, they're so proud of their curls. They're so proud of their dresses. They're so proud of their dolls. And what are they doing? Mine is better. Isn't it? Mine is better. And I have this, and I have that, and my mom got me that, and my dad got me that. This is what children are doing. From a very young age, they are encouraged to show off. Isn't it? Show off your curls. Walk like this. Talk like this. And when children, they behave in this way, we feel so proud. We get so amused. And this is a sign of arrogance. And if it's not controlled at this point, imagine what queens in their head they'll become as they grow older. So we have to be very, very careful about it. And we see that on one side, Luqman Hakim, he's instilling in his child positive traits. Best character. How? Where he's telling him that he should fear Allah more, that he should know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching him. That وَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَانْهَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. All of these are what? أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ. Good qualities. And at the same time, he's also telling him to stay away from bad habits, bad qualities. Both are necessary. You instill good qualities and you remove bad qualities as well. Remove far from children all types of ill manners, bad manners. And notice, he does not say over here, don't walk like this, I hate it when you walk like that. Don't walk like that, you look like so and so. What does he say? Don't walk like this. Why? Allah does not like such people. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. Allah does not like such people. And when a child has the love of Allah, the fear of Allah in his heart, then he will be able to leave anything for His sake. What is the problem today? The way that young people dress, the way that they walk, the way that they talk, you try to correct them, they say, oh, you don't know. You're so outdated. You live in the past. You have no idea what's going on today. Why? Why do they say this? Why do they behave like this? Because what's missing in their hearts? Love of Allah, fear of Allah. When the love of Allah comes, when the fear of Allah comes, then a person can leave anything. Then a person can do anything that Allah likes. Typically, what do people like to do? They like to follow mainstream fashion instead of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited us from. And we see over here, in this ayah in particular, akhlaq. In the previous ayah, morals, values. And in this ayah, akhlaq. So we see that he is raising a very well-behaved, a well-mannered child. When it comes to doing tarbiyah of children, sometimes we're only concerned about making sure they have memorized this, they have memorized that. They're getting excellent grades. They're going to school. They're doing their work. But when it comes to their behavior, when it comes to their character, sometimes that is neglected. That is neglected sometimes. Just the other day I went to visit some people, and their son, teenager, is going to university, first year, second year, something like that. And I was amazed at how he greeted the guests and how he stood as the guests were leaving. Believe me, I've never seen any teenage boy, even teenage girl like this. No one ever. And I was thinking that how come this child is like this? So respectful, with so much respect for other people. He's standing there with a smile, greeting everybody, all the uncles as they're coming in or as they're going. Who does that? Who stands at the door with their father as the uncles are coming or as the uncles are leaving? Who does that today? Which boy does that today? Which teenager boy does that today? hardly anyone. You keep telling them, come, come, the guests are here. Come, come, the guests are leaving. And they're busy in their own world. And I was thinking about it. This child was so well-mannered because his parents are like that. His parents are like that. When parents give respect to others, then children will also give respect to others. And when parents will actively try to instill these qualities in the children, then the children will become like this. So we see that Luqman Hakim, he's raising a very well-behaved, a well-mannered child. Someone who is very civilized, someone who is very respectful, someone who is very courteous. So how is it possible when parents themselves are like it? But many times what happens, children come, we don't give any importance to them. Isn't it? They come, they go, no salam, nothing. We pretend as though they don't exist. Whereas if we give importance to children, it can have such a positive effect on them. I was reading this book by Sheikh Muhammad al-Arifi, and he had written that once he went somewhere and it was a classroom, and he was questioning the children, and one of the children, he gave a very good response. So he wanted to give him something. He didn't have anything. He just took off his watch and immediately gave it to that boy. Because he wanted to show appreciation to the boy. And that boy, he didn't know where he was from, what he was going to do, how it was going to affect his life. But many, many years later, Sheikh Muhammad mentioned that he went to a masjid and there was a boy who was reciting the Quran very beautifully. And afterwards, he came to him and he said to him, I'm that boy. And because of that watch you gave me, you encouraged me so much that I made up my mind I was going to do something. What happens? Children come, they say such good things, they do such good things, but we pretend as though they haven't done anything. We don't even acknowledge them. Then what kind of motivation can we give them? How can we encourage them to become better people? What role models are we providing for them? So, if we want children to be respectful, we have to be respectful towards them first. وَقْصِدْ فِي مَشِيكَ, and be moderate in your pace. That when you walk, how should you walk? With moderation. وَقْصِدْ, قَاب, صَاد, دال, قَصْد. And qasd is to proceed straight away. To go towards one's direction straight away. To not get distracted here, there, to not get diverted, but straight away. And then it also means moderation. To be balanced. Because qasd is actually the moderate way, the middle path. And if you think about it, whenever you're going somewhere, if you adopt the middle path, then you'll get to the destination straight away. Whereas if you keep going right or left, then what will happen? It will take you hours. Isn't it? Just imagine one road, one highway, it leads you to a particular destination. And what happens when exit comes? You're like, oh, let me see what's there. And you turn right. And the street turns left. Okay, let me see what's there. Then what will happen? Will you get to your destination? No. Qasd is what? The middle way, the moderate way to go straight away to the destination. This is why we see in the dua, وَأَسْأَلُكَ الْقَصْدَ فِي الْفَقْرِ وَالْغِنَى, that I ask you for moderation in poverty and also when I'm wealthy. That when I have less, I still don't become stingy. And when I have more, I don't end up wasting wealth. So qasd is what? Moderation. So waqsid fi mashika, be moderate in your walk. That while you're walking, how should you walk? What should be your speed? Of moderation. Not that you're running all the time. Because sometimes we encourage the children, run, run, run. And what happens? That's what they like to do all the time. There should be a time for running, and there should be a time for walking. Right? And sometimes what happens? That people, they walk so slowly that they begin to affect others. So moderation in speed is necessary. And moderation in speed means that whatever the situation requires from you, that is what you do. You understand? It doesn't mean that you walk slowly, very, very slow, dragging your feet, being very meek. No. Nor does it mean that a person is rushing, that a person is walking arrogantly. No, but rather he should walk peacefully and with dignity. And how will that be possible? That when a person keeps his walk, how? According to the situation, according to the circumstances. That let's say a person is driving on the highway. That person says, no, waqsid fi mashika. I shouldn't drive that fast. No, over there you have to drive fast. Right? And you're driving on a street and you say, وَقْصِدْ فِي مَشِيكَ. Okay, you're driving slowly, good. You should be driving slowly over there. You shouldn't be speeding over there. So how will it be determined? The place that you're in, the circumstance that you're in. وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ. And also lower your voice. وَغْضُضْ, غَيْن, ضاد, ضاد. غَضْ. And what does غَضْ mean? To lower, to reduce. Remember غَضُّ الْبَصَرِ? Lowering of the gaze, reducing the gaze. So similarly, this word is also used for lowering of the voice, reducing of the voice. So وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ. Reduce, lower, min صَوْتِكَ. It doesn't mean talk, in a very low voice all the time. But what? Sometimes, meaning wherever it is appropriate. In certain situations, you're required to be loud. Like what? Like, for example, when a person is giving the adhan, right? He has to be loud. If a person is making an announcement, he has to be loud. If a person is sitting in a place, let's say you're sitting in the classroom, I'm sitting all the way here. If you give a comment and you say, I should be low in my voice, I won't be able to hear you. Now, if you speak loudly, that does not mean you're being disrespectful. You are required to be loud in this situation. Alright? But in other situations, what does it mean? Generally, when you're talking to someone, you're having a conversation with someone, you're addressing someone, how should you talk? Not loudly, but in a low voice. And low voice does not mean that the other person is struggling to listen to you. Low voice means that you're not yelling. Alright? So, وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ. Min. Notice that over here. Some, not all. إِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيرِ. Why should you lower your voice? Because indeed the most disagreeable, the most hideous of voices, the most hideous of sounds is of who? لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيرِ. The sound of who? Of the donkey. Aswat is a plural of sawt, and ankar, most disgusting, most loathsome, most hideous. To who? To the listener, that nobody likes to listen to it. Nobody enjoys listening to a donkey braying. So, inna ankar al-aswati la sawtul hamir. And how does a donkey bray? With an exhale and ending with an inhale. Extremely loud, hideous, hard to listen to, irritating. Nobody likes to listen to it. So don't be annoying when you talk to other people. That you're so loud, other people are waiting for you to be quiet. Isn't it? Inna ankar al-aswati la sawtul hamir. Now if you think about it, in every culture, is a donkey respected? A donkey is considered a donkey, right? Nobody likes to be like a donkey. Nobody likes to be called a donkey. Nobody likes to be compared to a donkey. So he's giving him a very good example. That don't imitate a donkey, my dear son. Inna ankar al-aswati la sawtul hamir. If you notice when he tells him to walk, waqsid fi mashika, you're a human being. Don't be wild when you walk. Waghdud min sawtik. Again, you're a human being. When you speak, speak in a low voice. Inna ankar al-aswati la sawtul hamir. So don't imitate a donkey. But what happens when children imitate the sounds of different animals? What do they get? What do they get in return? Wow! Do it again, do it again. Isn't it? This is what we do. That when children, they make hideous sounds, loud, disrespectful sounds, we encourage them. And sometimes literally children are having a competition. He can do better, she can do better. My child can do better. See how amusing he is. But this is not the right way. We see that Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, he narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, when you hear the crowing of roosters, that early in the morning or sometime during the day, you hear roosters making loud noise, ask for Allah's blessings. For their crowing indicates that they have seen an angel. And when you hear the braying of donkeys, seek refuge with Allah from shaitan. For their braying indicates that they have seen a shaitan. Bukhari. That when roosters, when they're making noise, what does that indicate? That they have seen an angel. So angels are around. You don't know what they're bringing. Ask Allah for rahmah. Ask Allah for some blessing. It doesn't mean that the angel is the cause of the blessing. But the angels, they would be there for a reason, right? So when they're there, ask Allah for some blessing, for some rahmah. And when a donkey is braying, it means that he has seen a shaitan. So, seek Allah's refuge, because there is a shaitan that is around somewhere. So seek Allah's refuge. But many people, when they hear the braying of a donkey, what do? They imitate it. They imitate that sound. It's not decent at all. It's very, very indecent to imitate such sounds. Think about it, a human being so dignified. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given so much dignity and respect to human beings, and we degrade ourselves by imitating the sound of other animals. And out of all the animals, this is what we can come up with. So, this advice is extremely beautiful, that وَقْصِدْ فِي مَشِّكْ وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكْ إِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيدِ. We'll listen to the recitation, then we'll continue. If you think about it, what is the reason behind screaming, shouting, talking loudly, walking arrogantly, dragging one's feet, not caring about other people? What's the reason behind that? Arrogance, mukhtal, fakhur, a person who lives in his own self only. He is not concerned about other people. Because when a person will be concerned about other people, when he will walk, how will he walk? With care. Isn't it so? He will not walk so loudly that as he steps, each step is like a hammer in somebody else's head. Literally. Because sometimes what happens, that if people are living in the same house on different floors, sometimes people are not careful about those who are living on a lower level. In apartment buildings, sometimes it happens. Isn't it so? Sometimes people who are living in the basement, and we have no care or concern for people who are living in the lower level. We let our children run. Many times people who are living in apartments, what are they complaining about? That the children who live on the upper level, they're running all the time. And they make so much noise. Isn't it? Sometimes in the house even. So this is something we have to be very careful about. Because when a person, he walks like this, without caring about other people, it shows that he's mukhtal and fakhur. He's not concerned about others. And sometimes as we walk, we drag our feet. Or when we walk, we don't care about the other people who are around us. We push them. We bump into them. Sometimes it's by mistake. That's understandable. Obviously, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody can lose their balance. But sometimes we're not careful in the way that we walk. It shows that we're inconsiderate. This is something that is not right. And similarly, sometimes when we're talking, we talk so loudly in a way that is very disturbing to other people. We see that Hussein, radiallahu anhu, he said that I asked my father about the Prophet ﷺ's behavior among his companions. And he answered that he was always cheerful, easy-mannered, and lenient. With his companions, in gatherings, how was he? Cheerful, easy-mannered, lenient. He was not rough. He was not noisy. He was not vulgar, insulting, or miserly. Because sometimes when we're talking, we say extremely harsh words, we make a lot of noise, we become vulgar in our speech, we become abusive in our speech. He wasn't like that. He used to overlook what he disliked. Anything that he disliked, what did he do? He overlooked it. But what happens with us sometimes? If somebody says something, does something that we dislike, we don't leave them until we think that we have put it in their head that what they did was wrong, what they said was wrong. So he used to overlook what he disliked. What is this a sign of? Humility. And if you don't leave the other person until you make them admit that what they did was wrong, what they said was wrong, that is what? A sign of arrogance. That how dare they say this against me? How dare she pass this comment against me? So he used to overlook what he disliked without depriving others of hope or answering them negatively. When he overlooked the faults of other people in a gathering, he would not deprive them of hope that, oh, I should not even say anything after this. You know, sometimes in a gathering it happens, you say something wrong, the other person insults you so bad that you don't say anything for the rest of the evening. So he would not deprive other people of hope, nor would he answer them negatively. And he refrained from disputation, from prattling and curiosity. Prattling is when a person talks non-stop, just talking. You know, like for example, a person has gone somewhere and they won't stop until they have told you the entire story. What do they want? They should be the focus. gaining attention, mukhtal. And he refrained from curiosity. What does that mean? Interfering in other people's personal affairs. How? By asking personal questions. Like what? Okay, how long have you been married? Sometimes they're more personal. How much do you earn? How much money do you make? Do you get any money for the work that you do? Do you get paid for it? Or are you volunteering? How does that concern you? If somebody is volunteering or somebody is getting paid for the work they do, how does it concern you? You don't have to pay for their taxes. Isn't it? You don't have to do that. So don't be concerned. Okay, how old are you? Sometimes people don't leave you until you tell them their age. You look so young. So, the Prophet ﷺ, he refrained from curiosity. Because all of these things, what do? They make the other person uncomfortable. Isn't it? And he spared others from 3 things. He never censured, laum, like constantly blaming people, found fault with, or spied on them. He wouldn't do that. Censuring people, finding fault in people, spying on people. Let me see what he does. Let me see what she does. Let me see what's on her phone. Let me see which model it is. Is it the newer one? Is it the older one? He spoke only what he hoped would be rewarded. He spoke only what he hoped would be rewarded. And when he spoke, his listeners lowered their head quietly. Why? Because whatever he said was so meaningful. Isn't it? Because when do you not care about what the other person is saying? Either when they're saying something negative, or they're saying something that has nothing to do with them, or they're saying something non-stop, constantly. So what happens? You don't give any attention to what they're saying. But the Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke, his listeners lowered their head quietly. And when he was silent, they spoke. They never spoke haphazardly in front of him. And if one talked in his presence, they listened to him until he had finished. And he used to laugh and wonder at what they laughed or wondered at. Because sometimes we think that laughing or wondering, this is something that is against piety. But we see that a normal human being, a person who lives with moderation, what does moderation mean? That you refrain from that which is wrong, which is described in these ayat. And he was patient with strangers who were rude in both their talk and requests. Because sometimes what happens? A stranger, somebody who has nothing to do with you, all of a sudden they see you and they ask you, are you expecting? And what happens? You're like, who are you? And why do I need to tell you? So he was patient with strangers who were rude in their talk and their requests. Who can be like that? A person who is not mukhtal and fakhur. So look at these qualities that Luqman is instilling in his son. That don't be arrogant, don't be boastful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like such people. When you walk, walk with humility. When you talk, talk with humility, with moderation. Don't imitate animals. Don't come across as someone who is not liked. Anything you'd like to say before we conclude? Many times it happens that when we read these descriptions, we think, oh, I don't do it. And we think, oh yeah, that person and that person I know. No, we shouldn't be thinking about other people. We should be thinking about who? Ourselves. That maybe I walk like this. Maybe I talk like this. Maybe I behave like this. And only when we reflect on ourselves, then can we correct ourselves. Otherwise, where's the improvement? How is it possible? Self-reflection is the first thing to do. The thing is that children, anything that you will appreciate before them, that is what they will begin to love. And anything that you show dislike towards, that is what they will develop dislike for. Isn't it so? Little children sometimes, in fact even adults when they grow up, they will not like certain foods, they will not do certain things. Why? Because since they were children, their mother told them this is not good, this is not nice, this is not right. Isn't it? And they never grow out of it. Never. Why? Because this is what they were shown was good and this is what they were shown was bad. So whatever you show to your children, that is exactly what they will see. Many times parents tell their children, oh, you won't like this food, don't eat it, don't try it. And what happens with the rest of their lives? Children will not try it. So we see over here that what do we need to show as good to our children? That which Allah likes. And what do we need to show as bad? That which Allah does not like. Allah does not like this, Allah likes this. That should be the priority. And how will that come? When you have the lesson ingrained in you of La tushrik billah, that everything Allah watches, everything Allah knows, ya'ti bihi Allah, only then will you be able to transfer these things to the children as well.
Let's listen to the recitation of these verses.
ولا تصعد خدك للناس ولا تمش في الأرض مرحا إن الله لا يحب كل مختال فخور واقصد في مشيك واغضض من صوتك إن أنكر الأصوات لصوت الحمير.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.